All right, it's Friday again, and it's time for another movie retrospective. And we're doing another John Carpenter movie, and this was one that, because you know how I often say, oh, I don't really like any John Carpenter movies
like hit or miss
after they live.
Right.
I had totally forgotten about this one, and this one is rad.
Yeah, it's kind of like Creepshow.
Yeah.
It's his version of Creepshow.
It's Body Bags from 1993.
Yeah, Carpenter even kind of like hosts it in the way like the Crypt Keeper did.
Yeah, except not as annoying.
He's not as annoying. Yeah, he's quite cool as a host, really. He's like in a, in a morgue, trying to be some kind of morgue, messing around with bodies. But he's pretty cool. I liked it. And it's 3 stories, and each one of them is pretty good. Cheston isn't in it, and Crussell isn't in it. But it's got a lot of cameos. There's a lot of people you're like, man,
that was one of the best things about this movie. And like it was done in a way that wasn't super cheesy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It was just kind of like, hey, here's that. And I'm like, hey, there's that person. And hey, there's that person.
Yeah, it's like out of the blue. There's Deborah Harry. You know,
that was super weird.
It wasn't even hyped. And they're like, oh shit, man, there's Mark Hamill.
Yeah.
And he's playing like a psychopath.
Yeah, which he was eerily good at.
Yeah.
I thought that was a little strange.
Yeah.
Yeah, so initially, the thing about Body Bags, it was supposed to be, you know, because Tales from the Crypt was so popular for HBO, I think it was.
Yeah.
Now, I believe it was Showtime. And they approached John Carpenter about doing a similar series, or they wanted to make like an anthology type of thing. So he made Body Bags originally for cable television.
All right.
But then they decided that they didn't want it.
Okay.
So then he was like, well, I'll just release it like a theatrical release. Right?
Oh, okay. So that's where this came from.
Right. So it was initially intended to be like the other cable channel's version of Tales from the Crypt. So it's like 3 stories. Like I said, it's very similar to Creepshow.
Yeah, you know what?
Not quite as comic booky, but a similar type of thing.
Taking it back to those days, that concept was kind of oversaturated, so maybe that's why they didn't want another one.
It might have been, yeah. And maybe when they saw it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they weren't. That's the thing.
They weren't that much of a success. I mean, mostly in retrospective. People liked them, you know. I mean, they had fans.
And I have to say, we eventually will have to do Creepshow because I love Creepshow.
Yeah,
but not the second one. The second one was kind of shitty, but the first one was really good. Yeah. But this has like a similar. It's not quite as comic booky as Creepshow. I mean, it is a horror comedy, although it's not. I didn't really find it as zany as Tales from the Crypt.
It's kind of like the movies.
Yeah,
it's kind of like a Carpenter movie when Carpenter's hitting. I think he did pretty good on this.
It's fairly gory.
Yeah.
You know, so, but I don't think that was the problem or why Showtime didn't want it, because Tales from the Crypt was pretty fucking gory too.
Yeah.
But yeah, this was like, so it's an anthology film from 1993. It consists of 3 stories. Now, the first one is called The Gas Station.
Yeah.
And this one has Robert Carradine is in it.
Yeah.
Who was in Revenge of the Nerds.
Mm-hmm.
It also has David Naughton, who was in An American Werewolf in London.
Yeah.
Sam Raimi makes a cameo appearance, sort of.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another person that makes a cameo appearance as, like, shifty creep is Wes Craven.
That's right. Each one of these...
that actually really cracks me up a lot.
Yeah, each one of these stories has a bunch of Carpenter's friends make an appearance, you know, Greg Nicotero and stuff like that.
Yeah, there's a bunch of famous people in this.
Yeah.
So, yeah, the first one is just, like, basically this girl... And it's her first day on the job, and she's doing like the overnight shift at this remote gas station, and it's just like all these, you know, weirdos that she's dealing with.
Yeah,
and
it's kind of like what it's actually like working.
That's what I was going to say. Like, you know, my dad used to work at a magic market for many years. On the overnight shift, and he has some stories.
I had friends that did it off and on.
And, you know, getting held up. And
I'll tell you one thing. You know, it was a trip watching that particular story. Is that the gas stations actually had a service station connected to it? When's the last time you've seen that?
Yeah, that's been...
I went looking for one to get a tire changed, and they're not around anymore.
Well, like I said, and it's one of those kind of things, like, you know, phone booths.
Yeah, you don't see them.
You saw them, and then you didn't really think about it, and now you can't find them anymore.
Right. Now
they kind of faded away while you weren't paying attention. And I think the same thing happened with, like, service.
Yeah, it's like the dealerships took over all service.
Yeah, pretty
much. And, you can go to Tire Kingdom maybe, or Firestone.
Or something. Like now everything's like a big chain, like Pep Boys or, like the Sears Auto Centers. Do they even have those anymore? Because I know Sears is in trouble.
I don't think they have. No, they don't have Sears Auto Center.
Yeah, but they still have Pep Boys and shit like that. So, and I think
I think most Pep Boys are just buying parts.
Tuffy and stuff like that.
Right. Oh, that's right. No, there's a Pep Boy over there. I know where that.
Yeah, there's Pep Boys all over the place. Yeah, they're all over the place, and they have a big store where you can buy auto parts, and they have a big service. Shit too, because that's where I used to take my car when I lived in.
But it's weird, when you're our age in our 40s, and you see this service station, it just kind of brings back memories. And you're like, man, I remember when all gas stations looked like that.
Yeah,
they don't look like that anymore.
Yeah, it's pretty weird.
Gas station nowadays looks like a convenience store.
Yeah,
with some pumps out in front of it.
That's pretty much it.
Yeah.
But yeah, but like I said, all of these stories are good. Honestly. This one was good. I love Wes Craven coming up, like playing a total weirdo, like this poor girl in this fucking gas station.
Yeah, we can't ruin them though.
Yeah, I'm not going to ruin them. I'm just giving a very broad
actually,
outline.
I don't think most people have seen these, and you can watch it for free on Tubi TV, which is tubi.tv.
Yeah, that's where. Yeah, some of the ones that we've been watching recently, we actually found on tubi.tv, which I actually got turned on to by a friend of ours because they said, oh, The Tenant is on there, because we did a show about The Tenant, and they said, oh, it's on there, and I was like, what is that? They're like, it's just this free shit. It's like Hulu used to be before Hulu went to an all-pay service.
Yeah, and it's and actually they're in HD when they can.
And the nice thing about there are commercial breaks in it, but not many. It's pretty much just one commercial every 20, 30 minutes, something like that.
Yeah.
And so it's not really that big a deal. The movies are not cut. And the cool thing about them is that they tend to focus on older movies. Like, they have some newer direct-to-DVD crap and stuff. Yeah. But especially in the horror section, they have a lot of horror movies, and they have a lot of, like, kind of classics from the 60s, 70s, 80s.
Yeah, it's like the older stuff that you don't see on Netflix anymore.
Yeah, I mean, they have The Tenant,
and
they have Black Sunday.
They're changing them up.
They have all kind of, like, cool shit on there. So, they have Alice, Sweet Alice. Yeah. I gotta do that show.
And also they have in the action flicks section, they got all the cheesy ones, like the new Steven Seagal ones that you wouldn't want to buy.
That didn't even come out in the theater.
Yeah, direct to DVD. You don't want to buy that shit, but you might want to watch it just to laugh at it.
Yeah.
So that's a good place for that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So that's where we actually saw Body Bags, and I had totally forgotten about this movie. And so I take it back, what I said about John Carpenter not making any good movies after They Live, because They Live was, 88, right?
Yeah.
This one was 93, and I actually really, really like this movie.
Yeah.
It's kind of hilarious. Now, the second one, I think was your favorite, right? It's just called Hair.
Yeah, Hair was awesome.
Stacy Keach is in it.
Yeah.
And he basically plays this guy who's going bald.
Yeah.
And his girlfriend is played by Sheena Easton.
Yeah.
Like, I couldn't place her while I'm like, who is that? I know who that is. But then I looked it up later. Yeah, it's Sheena Easton.
Yeah.
And so he's like super, super sensitive about losing his hair.
Yeah.
So he goes to this newfangled clinic that he sees advertised on late night TV or some shit.
Yeah.
It's run by David Warner and his nurse, Debbie Harry.
That's right.
And, they are going to give him this miracle hair growth. And they don't really tell you what it is.
Yeah, it's a cool story.
The best thing about this segment is when the hair grows, he has this fabulous, like, Fabio hair.
Yeah.
And he's like looking in the mirror.
He's like the king, right. Make sure my men are well fed and bring me the
yeah, that kind of shit. It's like, it's hilarious. It's hysterical. And Stacy Keach is so good in that role. And
he tries all these hokey hair loss cures first, just like painting his scalp.
Painting his head. Kind of like that.
Yeah, kind of like, that's what Steven Seagal does. If you look at Steven Seagal, he's just got painted on.
Well, it's just like back in the day, wasn't that like Cy Sperling Hair Club for Men? Didn't they do that? There was some kind of late night.
No,
what was it? It was like a spray that was like, but it was spray paint.
They had a bunch of different ones. One of them was they would just take plastic fake hair that had a barb on it.
Yeah.
And they would inject that into your scalp. I knew the guy that invented that.
Yeah.
And he got sued because it would give you a really bad rash.
Well, obviously.
But, it made sense. You had silicone implants for women.
Yeah.
Why not implant a silicone piece of hair?
Right.
And it falls out, but you can put more in there.
Maybe you should just like shave all your hair off and tattoo hair onto the top of your head.
I'm thinking that you could probably revive that idea with modern technology and probably get that to work.
Well, I think they do have that. Like, I don't really know what I'm not bald, so I'm not up on the cutting edge of hair.
Another thing they do is they just weave a net to your head.
Yeah.
And then weave synthetic hair or real hair onto that net.
Right.
That's another way to do it.
So it's sort of like a wig, but it doesn't.
Kind of like a wig, but it's woven into your hair.
Yeah. And honestly, I forgot to mention, but one of the funniest cameos in this part of it is before Stacy Keach goes and gets the treatment. He's like looking at all these people with their fabulous long hair in the street, and Greg Nicotero is in there.
Yeah, he's like at 20-something years old.
Yeah, he's very young in this, and he's like swishing his hair around like he's in a fucking Pantene commercial. Yeah. It's fucking hilarious.
And it's funny because
he's in it for like 2 seconds.
That's John Carpenter in his generation where they really loved to have that long hair. That's super retro nowadays. That, it's not really cool, too much like a
It depends how you wear it.
I guess it depends on who the guy is and what the hair looks like and what look he's going for.
Some people actually look good with long.
You have to be tall and skinny, if you ask me.
Yeah.
I think you have to be tall and skinny.
Yeah, I do think that look. Definitely helps, because then you can pull off that Vampire Armand kind of vibe. But yeah, I was going to say about Greg Nicotero, even though he's basically known as a makeup guy, he was like, Tom Savini's protege, who has actually done very well for himself, obviously. He does The Walking Dead and all that shit now. But, he was in, one of the Romero movies, Day of the Dead, Dawn of the Dead. He was in one of those. Yeah, his head got ripped off. I remember that because I remember watching. And if you other old people will maybe remember this, back in the day, back in the 80s, there used to be a documentary about Tom Savini talking about his special effects. I can't remember the title was. I used to have it on VHS and I watched it a million times. And he's there with Greg Nicotero, who's like fucking 19 or something like that in this shit. And he's like his assistant.
Right.
And they're talking about like making the fake head for Greg Nicotero for one of the zombie movies and shit like that. It's a good documentary. Somebody probably put it on YouTube by now. But it's just funny seeing Greg Nicotero so young, because now he's just kind of like an elder statesman type of thing. But yeah, so he makes a pretty a short cameo in that, as does Sheena Easton, like I said.
Yeah.
And then the third segment is just called I.
Yeah, it's weird.
And this is a pretty standard horror movie type of story where it's like, you get an organ transplant from somebody that turns out was a murderer, and then you start acting like the murderer and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's Mark Hamill. He's a baseball player. He's playing a professional baseball player who gets in a car wreck and loses an eye.
Yeah.
So they transplant an eye into his head, and it's a different color. And it turns out that it was from a guy who was executed.
Yeah.
And he was a psychopath.
Right.
And he goes pretty fucking berserk in it. It's very neat.
Yeah.
He starts seeing things that the killer saw in a way.
So like I said, that's a pretty standard horror movie trope. I mean, the Pang brothers made that movie The Eye in 2002 that was kind of the same premise.
Yeah,
except she was seeing dead people.
I found out that Mark Hamill's actually a pretty good actor.
He was really upsettingly good in that. Well, because
besides Star Wars, I'd really only seen him in The Guyver. And
what about Corvette Summer?
I never saw that one. But I saw him in The Guyver, and The Guyver's pretty bad.
Well, see, the thing about Mark Hamill is that, he kind of went off into voice acting. I mean, obviously, he's like a legendary
They say he's the best Joker ever.
Oh, yeah. And he's kind of more known for that than movie roles. But he was really surprisingly good in this. Yeah. And especially playing the role that he's playing, where he's just kind of like, at first, he's like this aw shucks kind of nice guy. And then he slowly like starts unraveling and turning into this raging psychopath.
Yeah, he morphs into this evil redneck. Like a Mississippi redneck kind.
Yeah, kind of like that.
Somebody living in a shotgun shack way out in the woods. That's what he sounds like.
He does in a shotgun shack.
He does in Mississippi.
Letting the days
he does it. By. Yeah. Living in a shotgun shack.
That's what
he does a pretty good Mississippi accent, kind of.
Yeah, I quite liked it.
Yeah.
So other cameos in this one that were interesting. Now, here's another thing. Like his wife in this, it was bugging me the whole time. And I'm like, God, I know her. You know who that was? Twiggy.
Yeah, that's right.
The very famous model and it girl from the 60s. That was Twiggy. Two of the doctors that are working on his eye are played by Roger Corman, obviously, the very famous.
I forgot about that,
And fucking John Agar. He was in a whole bunch of shitty Roger Corman movies, but I didn't recognize him because he's old as shit in this movie.
Yeah.
I recognize him from all the old 50s movies that he was on at MST, because they used to bust his balls all the time because he wasn't really that good an actor. But so John Agar is in this as one of the doctors.
Yeah, the movie has an all-star cast.
It really does.
Yeah.
And it should say at the end, like the kind of, the framing device that has John Carpenter, he's kind of in makeup, so he looks like a creepy, corpsey morgue attendant kind of thing, and he's got like bags of guts and shit like that. It kind of
reminds me of Beetlejuice.
Yeah, he looks a little Beetlejuicy, not quite as crazy. Yeah. But the two other morgue attendants are played by Tom Arnold and Toby Hooper, director of Texas Chainsaw Massacre, among many other things.
Yeah,
so like I said, this was like a star-studded production, although they don't make a huge deal of it.
No, you'd have to know who they were. They're mostly, producers and directors and guys that did stuff behind the scene. But, if you're a hardcore horror fan, you would pretty much recognize most of them.
Because I recognize pretty much everybody, and the ones that I didn't recognize, like I recognized them, but I couldn't remember who they were. Like Sheena Easton.
Right.
I was like, man, who is that bitch? And then like later I was like, oh yeah. She's not a bitch. I'm sure she's a lovely person. But, and same with Twiggy. Like I didn't, I knew who she was, but I couldn't place her.
Yeah, I never would have known that was Twiggy.
But the funny thing, all the directors I recognized. Yeah. And the Greg Nicotero one made me laugh the most just because of his fucking hair flying everywhere. But so I kind of feel like this movie pretty well regarded these days. It's got on Rotten Tomatoes, it's got about a 78% fresh rating, which is, that's pretty good.
But you can't always go by that, but if you got a good rating, a lot of times it's all right. There's a lot of shit up there that has a bad rating, and I'm going, what the hell are they talking about? That's a pretty cool movie. Yeah. Because it's, it's a thing of taste. It depends
movies are so subjective. It's like, some people are going to like one thing.
And I have a feeling that a lot of the people that actually kind of give reviews on Rotten Tomatoes, they're younger people. So they're not seeing the movie in the context of the time. They're trying to judge it by modern standards a lot of times. Because I'll go back and I'll read a review written by somebody on a movie that, from the 80s.
Yeah.
And they're talking bad about it, and I'm like, going, man, dude, it was 82. What do you expect?
Right. They didn't look the same. We didn't have all the shit that you guys have now.
Right, yeah.
You kids today with your CGI. Yeah. We didn't have any of that shit. Well, you did, but it was like really crappy.
Right.
But yeah, the thing about body bags, like I said, and I feel bad that I had totally forgotten about it. I really like anthology movies. Some of them are kind of uneven, especially if it's like a bunch of different directors and things like that. But I've seen a lot of ones that I really enjoyed, including Creepshow and including some newer ones too. I think there was one called A Christmas Horrors or Christmas something or other. And that only came out a couple years ago. What was that? You watched it with me, I think. And it had the Shat in it as like one of the framing devices. It had Santa fighting Krampus. It was like, was pretty rad.
That's right.
And I really liked that one a lot.
That's right.
And, you're going to run into that with any anthology movie. Like some of the stories are better than others. But this one, since it's only 3.
Yeah, they're all good.
Yeah, they're all pretty short. They're all pretty succinct, like to the point. And it's funny, but it's not like over the top funny.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's amusing. And it's fun, like spotting all the cameos and shit like that, which was something that I really enjoyed. And, I just really liked it. And like I said, I feel bad that I said that he didn't make any good movies in the 90s. Sorry, John Carpenter. This one is really good.
The Mouth of Madness wasn't bad.
Yeah, that's true. And we're going to have to do a review on that one too in a couple of weeks. Yeah, that's one of our ones that's upcoming. Like I said on the last thing, we're doing a kind of Lovecraftian.
Yeah.
We went off on a Lovecraftian type of shit.
Right.
Because of stuff that was on Tubi TV and that I saw, and I was like, we need to do reviews of that. So that'll be upcoming. All right, so that will do it for our brief review of Body Bags. Go check it out. It's on Tubi TV right now as of this recording. I don't know if they're going to take it down later or what, but, if you want to watch it, go watch it. You can watch it for free.
Yeah.
And remember, if you like our show, to like, share, subscribe, share on all your social media. If you'd like to financially support the show, you can go to our Patreon page, which is patreon.com/13o'clockpodcast, or you can go to our blog, which is 13o'clockpodcast.wordpress.com, and there's a link in the sidebar to a PayPal account if you'd rather give a one-time donation. And also remember to check out our regular episodes every Tuesday and our movie reviews, which come out every Friday. And we will see you next time. Bye.